to the Creating Effective Online Courses workshop. I'm Suzette Bailey, and I'm going to be your host for this evening and for this webinar. I wanted to welcome you to the webinar, and I'm hoping that you'll find it of interest. And as I mentioned in the email earlier today, it's going to be an interactive one. So make sure that you've got your pens and paper ready to go, because there's going to be a few times when you're actually going to be doing some work in this webinar. Now, I just wanted to make sure that you're okay with my style, one of which is making you actually do some work in a webinar. I know that's not always the case, so I'm just asking you, making sure that if anyone has any objections, that you just add it into the chat for me. And if you have any questions at any time, please, by all means, put them into the chat. And I'm also going to, towards the end of this webinar, is give you an opportunity to find out some information about how to take this further. So if you are interested in working with us, I will talk about that a lot more towards the end of the webinar. So just to kick things off and to get you quite in the mood to interact in this webinar, I'm just going to get a poll, put up a poll and asking you around how much experience you actually have with online courses. Have you ever delivered any? Have you actually created them? Have you done both? So there should be a poll displaying at the moment for you. So if you can just take, we'll just give you a few seconds to actually answer that before we go on to the next one. So I can see a number of you have already responded, so that's fantastic. So we're going to, I just want to ask you another question around how many times if you've actually done an online course. So we're just putting up a second poll, if you can just give me some information around that one. So have you ever done an online course as a student is the question. It's just yes or no. Looks like everyone has, so that's great. I have previously asked that question in an actual face-to-face workshop of this one, and it was interesting. A lot of them hadn't actually, a number of them said no to that question until I reminded them that there were things like YouTube videos and how-to videos. So it's great that you all have done online courses. So we're going to go, that'll help in regards to, as we go through, you having an understanding of what some of these things, how to experience it as a student. Okay, so what I wanted to do first is talk to you about face-to-face versus online. What's the difference? Which one is better? Well, most of you may have should have experienced face-to-face before, and as you've all indicated, you've all actually had some experience with online courses as a student, and also a lot of you have actually had experience in delivering some sort of online courses. So one of the things though with this is, I was just reading an article just yesterday actually from Barbara Oakley. She's a lecturer at a university over in the United States, and she delivers Learning to Learn course on massive online open course. Some of you may be aware of what a MOOC is. That is what a lot of the universities provide free education to people, and also paid courses to people that normally wouldn't get access to those. One of the things that she mentioned in this article was an interesting thing, was that online learning is actually better than face-to-face. And that got me thinking, I think she's actually right. A number of people think online learning is actually not as good as face-to-face. But a lot of things that she was actually talking about were that in an online course, you have the option of being able to show things that you don't necessarily have access to in a face-to-face environment. So an example, if you're lecturing on, or if you're providing information about human heart, for instance, you can do a green screen and actually walk through the heart. If you're providing guitar lessons, you can really get up close and provide information that's very, very visual for people to be able to follow. Whereas in a face-to-face course, that can be a lot more difficult, trying to manage balance the learning of a number of different people with the individual requirements of an individual student. So I think I'd like to challenge you that online learning is actually in some ways better than face-to-face. Not saying that there are not bad online learning courses, there absolutely are, but I'd also say that there are some very, very bad face-to-face ones as well. So one of the things I wanted to get into before we get sort of into the depths of this webinar is just really quickly talk to you about the benefits of online learning. A number of you probably realize that, because otherwise why would you be here? But I just wanted to give you a few statistics around how important online learning is, both to us as individuals, as business owners, as people who work in organizations, but also to the economy. So the benefits of online learning is something that I want to mention. I don't know if many of you realize that this industry is already $150 billion worldwide. And this is actually exponentially increasing. In Australia alone, it's over 6 billion and is increasing around 14 to 15% per annum. That's a large amount of e-learning online courses. Obviously, a lot of that is also in the academic sector, but you will find that in the corporate, small business, and the consumer sectors, that this is actually going to increase significantly over time. So this is big business. This is an area that is actually a very growth sector, and somebody who is getting involved in online courses, in delivering those online courses, is positioned in a way to be able to take advantage of that. Some of the other things around that is companies offering e-learning can be up to 26% more revenue per employees. Instructor time can be decreased by up to 60%. I mean, that's a large amount of time that can be saved as you as a trainer from your face-to-face. That can be through things like travel time, being able to deliver the same information in multiple times without actually having you to re-deliver it. One of the things that you'll find at the end of this webinar is that you're going to be sent an email that actually has a link to the replay of this webinar. So you have the opportunity to actually replay it and actually stop it, rewind, go through some of the activities that we're going to go through shortly, and actually redo them in your own leisure. So this is reiterating what Barbara was saying earlier, or what I was mentioning about what Barbara was saying earlier, is that online learning can actually be more effective than actual face-to-face training because of that ability to put the control of the learning into the hands of the student or the learner. The other thing with this is the information retention can be up to 60% higher. So this is going through things like being able to replay the information, being able to go and view it at their own pace, and be able to do activities over and over again to reinforce that learning is really important. It's something that you don't get so much in a face-to-face environment, because you generally have to go to fit a particular at a pace that fits a particular schedule. You have only a limited time, and you need to get that information across in that time. Now, another benefit of e-learning and online courses is it can actually boost productivity by up to 50%. So organizations that have been embracing online courses and e-learning have found that they've actually had an increase of productivity of over, up to 50% within their organizations. For medium to large organizations, that can be a significant saving. And even for individuals who might be training and providing services to these organizations, that can be a huge benefit if you can actually show a return on investment to your organization or to your clients, that you can help them to boost their productivity and to actually increase the information retention of their staff. So what I wanted to do now is we're going to move into a little bit more around the actual information itself and some of the structure of the course. So as some of you may already be aware from what I've said so far, this is an introduction to a course and to a workshop that I've actually delivered previously. So one of the things that I wanted to go through now is to give you a bit of a taster around some of the aspects of the course, but more importantly, give you the building blocks to get started in actually creating your own online courses. And what are the things that you need to consider when you're actually doing this? So one of the things is this concept of the different aspects of the stages that you need to go through when creating your online course. A lot of people actually start with the technology. I want to do a webinar. I want to put up a YouTube video. I want to create an online course. And they focus on the technology. They are all the delivery mechanisms of how they're actually going to present that course. This is really not the best way to start with an online course. By starting with the technology and the delivery area, you're missing a lot of the key points up at this top end of the pyramid. With the topic, you have an overall topic. You need to start with what you're actually intending to do. And we'll go through shortly some activities to actually get this moving and get you actually understanding or getting some topics and how to structure your course. But moving from the topic, we go down to the ideal student. It's really important to actually talk about your ideal student and understand who your ideal student is and why you're delivering the course for them. What a lot of people do is they'll start with the topic, they'll jump down to the content and the technology, and they'll forget about this important area, what is actually the reasons or who you are actually delivering the course to. Now, why is this important? Well, this is really important because the ideal student is actually going to tell you, and the characteristics of that ideal student is going to tell you how to actually deliver your course. If you have a course on project management, for instance, and you're delivering it to a really huge, motivated business or project managers that are going to go out and become contractors and earn huge amounts of money potentially, they're going to be very motivated to do that course. They're going to spend lots of time with you. One of the things with online courses is, compared to a face-to-face, is you're only a click away from people from dropping out of your course. So you need to make sure that you engage with them and you need to understand why the person's there in the first place. So understanding your ideal student gives you an understanding of what you need to, how you need to structure your course to actually accommodate them. So someone who's highly motivated is going to spend an hour or 2 hours actually in listening to you and in interacting with you and engaging with you in a course. But if somebody's actually being sent based by their employer, for instance, you may, or is somebody who's a project manager that is only in that's between projects, they're on a massive project and they're getting information from this course, but they're not necessarily available for an hour at a time. By actually only providing that course for at an hour length period of time, you're going to alienate or eliminate these groups that actually haven't got that ability to stay there for an hour or don't have the motivation for it. So understanding other things about the course, about the ideal audience, will also mean that you can tailor those courses or your course to that particular group. So you might do a project management course for the project managers that are working on a particular project versus another group that actually is a much broader group where you can talk around more general scenarios and things. So you can use the same course for different industries, different ideal students, and allows you to repurpose that information in a way that you can get the best value out of. That brings us then down to structure. It's really important to actually look at structuring your course, and a lot of people, I look at this as a linear process. They go, they put their topics in, done, move on to the content, we're fantastic. As you're going to see as we go through a couple of exercises, structuring is actually there's quite a lot to structuring your course. And in fact, part of the value also of structuring is not just in that initial course, it's also in that repurposing of the course. By understanding how you can structure, you might find that you have a preconceived notion that your topic is one course, but once you actually go through a structuring process, You might find that you actually have multiple courses within the same one, or you need to group topics together and actually create a single course. So it helps you to actually structure or to categorize your course and the topics within the online course so that you can better look after your ideal student. Bringing us down to content. Now that you have a structure, you can then populate that structure with content. It's only then we start to look at the technology. By understanding who the ideal student is, understanding the structure of the course and how we're actually going to break that up. Is it going to be chunked down into 10-minute sections or 5-minute sections? Is it going to be 1 hour? Is it going to be several hours? Is it going to be a series of videos, or is it going to be delivered online? Delivered in a text format online? Are you going to incorporate quizzes and things like that? So this is when you're going through the content process, you actually start to identify what you actually need to deliver to meet the requirements of the ideal student. So the technology then supports what you have proposed in the content. So by actually knowing what your content is going to be and how you need to deliver that content will then drive what your technology selections are. By going in with this without actually thinking about the content, the ideal student, your structure and your content first, then the technology is going to actually be a problem, because you may select the wrong technology. Now we seem to have someone who's lost connection to the video. We'll just see about sorting that out for you at the moment. Can everybody else see the video at the moment? Okay, so Pat, if you could actually just try refreshing, it might actually be your connection. Beautiful. Okay, so moving on to promotion. So now that we actually have established what the technology is and how we're going to deliver the course, we then can go into promotion. So promotion can be internal promotion if you're within an organization to encourage people to enroll in into the course. It could be actual being sent out to employees to actually do the course. Or it can be promotion if you're a business owner or a trainer talking to clients and actually wanting to have it as a paid course. This is a period where you'll actually start to promote the course and actually get people and students enrolled in your course. So there's a number of different areas around promotion. Now the last thing is, after we've done all of these steps, we actually get to delivery now. So it looks like it's a very long steps, a long process, but once you get comfortable with this process, it can be done very quickly. And in a lot of cases, things like the technology are going to be driven by the ideal student and the structure, which that you'll have worked out in advance and you can reuse for your different types of students. So overall, this process can be done quite quickly once you're actually quite familiar with it. So what this is now going to do is we're going to is to actually look at an exercise. Okay, we seem to be having a few technical issues. Okay, wait, mate. We'll just give it a minute and see if we can sort out the technical issues. Okay. So how are we going now? Is everyone, can you all see now, or is it still causing issues? Okay. I'm hoping that everything's fine now because we're going to go into the activity section. So what I wanted to do is get you to actually brainstorm a topic or some topics. What I'm going to do is actually, previously in the email that you would have been sent earlier this afternoon, and you were asked to actually to bring some post-it notes. It's not a problem if you haven't. What I'd suggest is, though, you have a few pieces of paper that you can actually use. Now, it's really important that you don't just write them on the same piece of paper, because there is a reason for it. So what we're going to do is do a bit of a brainstorm activity around your topic. So with your Post-it notes or your pieces of paper, what I want you to do is actually look at each one and write a particular topic, the first 3 to 5 topics that come to your mind on an individual piece of paper or Post-it note. So there's no thinking about which one's important or relative, which one's the one that you want to go with. Just get it out of your head. It's really important sometimes to just brainstorm. One of the other things that article that I mentioned earlier about Barbara is that we don't necessarily use our creativity as much as we should. We should be mixing it up and actually involving other types of techniques within our courses, both it be face-to-face or online, and even in our own learning. So part of this exercise is getting us to actually think creatively, actually not evaluating it, but getting the information down in a way that we can then take and go through and evaluate afterwards. So the idea, by putting an idea on each individual piece of paper, you can, or Post-it note, you then have the ability to move those around and actually evaluate which one is the one that is of importance to you and the one that you want to move forward with. So these all might be related to the same topic, but it allows you to get the information out of your head, thinking about it in such a way that you can then move forward. So now the other part with this is, so if I can just give you all about 30 seconds to just jot down the first 3 to 5 topics that come out of your head in regards to what you think you could deliver an online course about. So I'll just give you a few seconds about that. Right. Okay. So if some of you are comfortable in sharing, I'd love it if you could actually put in a couple of your top, or what is your top item or topic that you just wrote down, and what makes you, was it something, what made you think of that, what is it, and that sort of thing. So as if anyone can start putting in a few things that they actually, what their actual topics were, that would be great. So let's see if we can get some sharing ones. So have we got any topics? Okay. Looks like you're all having some technical issues, so that might be causing some problems at the moment. I do apologize. It's one of those things that when you're delivering an online course, things like if you're doing it over a live feed, things don't always go to plan, unfortunately. And evening webinars are always a little bit more interesting with everyone jumping on to watch Netflix and things like that, I think. So just to reiterate, if we can actually make sure that for the ones who have had some technical problems, 3 to 5 topics, and we'll move on. So what we're going to do is come back to those shortly, but I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about ideal student first. So your ideal student. There's 5 questions that you need to ask yourself about your ideal student. The first one is, who are they? What's the demographics of them? Are they employed? What age group are they? Where do they live? What is their motivations? Get to know who they are. It's really important to understand who they are and what actually drives them. I'd even suggest that you actually give them a name. My avatar, or my ideal student, has a name of Sarah, and she is 42 and lives as a independent trainer. She has been running her own business for a number of years, Get to know it. So you should feel comfortable. So as you can see, I can actually recite that. I know Sarah. Sarah is a person to me. So get to know your ideal student. Why is this important? Well, it's important because if you know your ideal student, when you're writing the course, you're writing the course for a person. Makes it much easier if you're doing this for someone that you know, even if that person happens to be a virtual person. So going on from that, what do they do? What are they, as I mentioned, Sarah's actually she runs her own business and she's been a trainer for a number of years. What does your ideal student do? What are the things that make your ideal student the person that they are? How do they learn? What's their learning style? What things drive them? What are they audio? Are they visually kinesthetic type ones? Do you need to put activities in? Are they ones that can only learn in short chunks, or because they've got quite busy lives? Or are they people that can actually sit and be engaged for long periods of time? Understanding how they learn and what their natural style is going to help you to adapt your course to that person. Really big one. What are their frustrations? I know some of you are actually frustrated at the moment with technical issues, and I do appreciate that, and I apologize for that. But one of the things that we've done to actually accommodate that is to provide a replay of this afterwards. So you understanding what the frustrations of your ideal student is going to help you to address those up front. You're not always going to necessarily get it right, but understanding what actually is a problem for them means that you can tailor the course a lot more to what they need and what their objectives are, which is going to in turn help you to meet your objectives. And the last question that you need to answer for your ideal student is, what do they want and what do they need? And don't make the mistake of thinking that they're necessarily the same thing. In a lot of cases, they're not. Somebody may want something, but they don't really need it. And vice versa, they don't want to do it, but they need to do it. So an example being in that situation is an employee that has to do an induction course doesn't necessarily want to do it, but they need to do it. So one of the frustrations, going back to the previous question with them, is that they're now having to do a course that they're not really interested in. And how are you going to address that? How are you going to deal with that? So understanding that is going to help you to be able to tailor that course to them. Now, one of the things that I can send out to all of you is we've actually created a little cheat sheet form that helps you to be able to create your ideal student. So we'll send this out to you as a bonus for actually coming to the webinar. So you'll get sent that out as an email to your email addresses later tonight. Or tomorrow. We'll just see how the technical issues go. So I just want to then go into a little bit more around learning styles. So there's a number of different learning styles, and some of you may actually be aware of the three main ones: audio, visual, audio, musical, and kinesthetic. There's also things like logical and emotional. So these are referred to as the intelligences. There's actually 10 of them. So these are the 5 pretty much main or most widely known ones. But there are also intrapersonal, interpersonal, dramatic, linguistic, and naturalist. So what I'm going to do is just go through each of them and just give you an understanding of each of them, because I think it's important that you actually incorporate these 10 intelligence as much as possible into your online course. So for some of them, it's going to be easier than others. And for some courses, they're going to be, some of the intelligences are going to have a much more importance than others. So for instance, if you're learning to play the guitar, the audio and musical elements, or engaging their audio and musical intelligence, is actually going to be higher than, for instance, their visual. But at the same time, you need to engage their visual for them to be able to understand what chords they're doing. So going through the ones with visual, This is really important for people. So what I'm doing is, at the moment, is engaging your visual. I'm actually providing something different. Just being a talking head to you gets a little boring after a while. Doesn't matter how animated or how useful or engaging that the speaker is, after a while you start to mind it. By putting up things like this, it actually helps you to be able to engage and understand from a visual perspective. So you now have ability to watch me, which is better than sort of the death by PowerPoint style for your visual intelligence. Now, the other aspect is your audio in musical. You can hear me. There's an audio, or at least I'm hoping that most of you can now hear me and see me. But it's engaging because you're being able to listen. So these are very important intelligences, and we're quite. Now, in kinesthetic, we've already done one activity, and that is the practical side. That's people wanting to do activities. You can do activities in an online environment. You just need to adapt them to how you actually do them in the online course or in an online environment, and you need to think through. And there's a little bit of some adaptation required of your activity, but it is absolutely achievable. Logical side. Now, what I'm doing at the moment is actually engaging the logical intelligences at the moment for you, because I've actually got the numbers on this card. So that's engaging the logical intelligence of you as the audience. The emotional side. I'm trying to bring that in through engaging with you and the personality side, asking you questions about engaging with your emotions and understanding some of the emotions of your ideal audience. This is bringing in the emotional intelligence of a learning style. We then bring in the next 5, intrapersonal. So the intrapersonal is the dialogue within an individual. So that's engaging their intelligence to get them to actually work through what you were teaching them, either it be online or in face-to-face, and getting them to understand and replay that information in a way that actually makes sense to them. Interpersonal is what a lot of you are doing in regards to the chat. It's actually engaging with your peers within a course. So bringing that aspect of engaging on an individual basis and having things that engage that person's way of problem solving and learning, and also engaging within the group can actually engage those two particular intelligences. Now, dramatic. It's not something that a lot of people think about as an intelligence, but it is. People like to be entertained, and you have really an obligation almost as a trainer to entertain to an extent your students. Obviously, some topics might require less entertaining than others, and I'm not saying be a class clown or be a comedian, but what I'm talking about is providing different ways of engaging with your clients and with your students. Being able to use tonality and visual cues and that sort of thing will help also to improve the dramatic nature of your online course. The other aspect is linguistic, and this harks back to the ideal student and understanding them. By understanding the linguistic patterns of your students, you're going to be able to introduce that into your online course and be able to talk their language. If you're actually talking to blue-collar workers, you're not going to be using professional language, and vice versa. If you're working to, say, white-collar workers, you wouldn't be using colloquialisms from another sector. So understand the language of your target audience so that you can engage their linguistic intelligence. Now, the last one is also another one that a lot of people think, how can I do that in an online environment? So naturalist can be, it's not necessarily as much as some of the other ones, but it is still something to bring into your course. One of the things, like for instance, in this one, I've got a frog. That's bringing in a little bit of nature, and you might find through the course, your course, that you can actually use images that engage people's nature. You can provide other sort of, maybe go and do a video outside once in a while and just bring in that nature side of it. It's not something that you need to spend a huge amount of time providing if it's not relevant to the course, but it's still an element that you need to take care of, that is worthwhile taking care of, because it does help to ground the students and engage that intelligence, even if it's not particularly relevant to the course itself. And it also then helps to things like the dramatic intelligence as well. So what I'm going to do is now move into structuring your course. So I'll just put, so with structuring your course, what we're going to learn is we're going to do another brainstorm session. And I want you to actually this time to think about the topic of the 3 to 5 topics that you actually wrote earlier. Just going to take a few 10 or 15 seconds, have a look at them, work out what's important to you. Of those different ideas, which one actually is the one that you want to work on? So the reason you might choose one over another can be varied, and they are personal. They relate to you or to your organization. So they could be which one is actually going to give you the most value, and which one is the one that your organization or you need to deliver because of particular reasons, like a client wants it, or a staff member, or there's an urgent need for it. Another reason is if you're developing courses that you want to use to actually, for instance, you know how to play the guitar and you want to pass that knowledge on. It might be because you want to engage your passion and do this as a way of actually passing on your passion to other people. So there can be a number of different reasons, and there's no right or wrong reason as to why you choose a particular topic. But if you could all just take a few seconds, pick a topic, because what we're going to do is now actually expand on that topic. Okay, so what I'm going to do is grab those Post-it notes again. This is the second time, and what we're going to do is do a bit of a brainstorm around your main topic. Think about it. Don't of some of the topics or some of the ideas around that core concept. Don't worry about trying to do them in the order. Just get them out. Now, we're not going to have time for you to do a huge amount in this area. I think you might find that you might only get about 3 to 5 out at the moment, but that's okay. Come back to the replay and do this again, and you can, by all means, do this activity yourself at your own leisure. So once you actually have at least 3 to 5 ideas on each individual Post-it note, that's really important, because what you're going to do now is to order them. So what you can then do is, once you actually have all of these Post-it notes, is you can order them into main topics and subtopics. As you go through and you did that brain dump, you didn't necessarily work out which one was going to be a main topic and what was going to be a subtopic. You just got it out of your head, and that's engaging that creative side of your brain and helping you to get information out that you might not necessarily think about if you did it only in a logical way. By now, but actually engaging the logical side and putting it together, you actually can structure the course in such a way that you have the linear flow across, and also you start to understand what you can actually do as subtopics under your main topic. So this is a way to actually pull together lots of ideas, and you might find that it's not just one session that you do this in. You might find you actually have to do this over a number of days, or potentially even weeks. You might get some information from other people and get some input. Put it on a butcher's paper, or put your Post-it notes on a wall, and get some input into your structure before you start diving into the content. It's really important to actually have that, taking that step back and looking at your structure, because it's this point now where you can actually evaluate it against your ideal audience and what their criteria are. Of all the topics that you've put there, is that almost too much for people? Is it the right amount? Do you have more than one course in all your different topics? So and by playing it out and moving things around, one of the things that by putting it onto Post-it notes is that you can move things around. So now you have the ability to actually say, oh, actually, I thought that might go before that topic, but you know what? It makes more sense if I put that after this one and do this first. So you can start to move things around. Whereas when in that traditional way of actually doing a linear course, you do it from the beginning to the end and you find that things don't necessarily work the way you want. So I'm a big advocate of Post-it notes. Now, the other thing with it too is you can also, there is an app on the Apple Store. Unfortunately, as far as I'm aware, it is only on the Apple Store, that you can actually get for Post-its, where you can actually take a picture of your Post-it notes and then be able to move them on your iPad as well. So that's really good at being able to keep a digital record of your Post-it notes. So at this stage, I'm just going to take a really quick and see if there's any questions. If anyone has any questions or comments about what we've up to so far. So do we have any questions? Right. Great. Okay. Well, what we'll do then is jump in. So I told you earlier I unfortunately wasn't going to be able to cover everything that I would in a course. So what I've done is actually just given you a bit of a taster around the topic, ideal student, and structuring a course. But there's quite a number of areas as well that help to build putting together your course. So what we're going to do is, I mentioned earlier that I would actually talk to you about how, if you wanted to move forward, sort of get assistance and that sort of thing, we could look at doing that. I've actually put together a full course that actually covers all of these areas, and it's a 6-week course that you go through all of the different topics and how to do them. It's interactive. In the actual course, it's a 6-week course. There's a 1-hour information session webinar each week. So a similar session like this, where we go through the topic and the information, and I provide a lot of the understanding and the theory around why you would do a particular part of the course. Then we also then have a 1-hour question and answer webinar. That gives you the opportunity to actually ask questions. So that's later in the week. So now that you've tried implementing some of the information from the information webinar, you can then ask questions to see how you can apply that. Because one of the things that's really important with this is not just providing you information, but also providing you a way to actually implement it and make sure that it's appropriate for you, for yourself. The other aspect is providing email access so you can ask questions. Now, something that we are in the process of doing is actually for this course is that there will be an opportunity to upgrade in the new year to a full nationally recognised qualification. So that's an Australian national recognised qualification for people who aren't in actually Australia. So what that means is that this course will be have the ability for people to do the course either at the accredited level or the non-accredited level. So people who choose to do the accredited level will be able to get a graduate certificate in digital education, which will be a nationally recognised qualification within Australia. That's something that we're going through at the moment, and anyone who does the course prior to that process being completed will have the opportunity to do the upgrade to get the full qualification once everything has been processed. So one of the things with this is this course, the first is a pilot course. So this is the first version of the online one, and anyone who does choose to join us, I wanted to make sure that you know that you're up for providing me feedback. One of the things that I really want is to understand what makes this useful for you. What is it you want to know? So at any time, if I'm not actually providing the information that you need, that you actually provide that feedback back so I can actually incorporate that into the next training for you, as well as also into the next course for any future students. Now, one of the other reasons with it being a pilot course is normally I'd be charging at least $997 per person for this course. But what I've done is make a special deal as a pilot, and also particularly for anyone who's on this webinar, is doing it at $397. So after the 48 hours, it will go up to $497, or you have the option of doing 3 easy payments of $150 each. So that's a special deal for anyone having watched the webinar within 48 hours of this webinar. But what I also wanted to make sure is that I make sure that this is something that is of use to you, specifically not just to the group itself. So the other thing I'm doing is providing a bonus session of a 30-minute strategy session with myself to actually go through what you want to achieve with your particular online course and mapping that out and seeing how we can actually work through that in the actual course itself and get the best benefit for you to make sure that you can actually create effective online courses. So I'm just going to put it up again. If anyone actually has any questions at this time, any additional ones. Not a problem. So we should be seeing the offer coming up very shortly, so that if anyone is interested in joining us, that they can actually put into so fantastic. Okay, so if you are interested in joining us, please by all means click on the link and the offer and go through and sign up to us. If you have any questions, by all means send me an email to we'll get the email address put into the chat, suzette.bailey@frogsense.com, and feel free to send us a question, an email with any of your questions about the course. Also, for some of you who are unable to pay through PayPal, we do have the option of being able to invoice as well. So that brings us to the end of the webinar, and I'd really like to say thank you to all of you for joining us. I really hope this has been useful for you, and I do apologize again for the technical hiccups that we've had. It's been one of those situations where you can't, when everything's alive, things can go wrong. So I do appreciate that you have made it to the end of the webinar, and I do hope that it has been of use for you. I'd love you to provide any feedback. Feel free to send it to me by email, and also or to post it on the FrogSense Facebook page. Okay, good night, and thank you very much for being here.